With rising temperatures, international conflict, and global industrialization, the world is hotter than ever. Exxon scientists projected these impacts almost 50 years ago. Today, I'll be talking about why corporations hold the responsibility for mitigating the effects of climate change and not the individual. I believe that corporations have caused the most damage, so they are responsible for mitigating and even reversing the effects of climate change. Climate change refers to the long-term shifts in temperatures and weather patterns, specifically since the 1800s and the industrial era. The constant burning of fossil fuels since then has blanketed the Earth with emissions and traps the sun's heat in our atmosphere. Upon my research, I was fearful for the future, but I realized there had to be solutions. I didn't find anything concrete, but I did find methods to combat climate change, as well as discover who to hold responsible. I utilized many United Nations reports for my research. We can all feel it. Heat waves in October, back-to-back hurricanes within the span of 2 weeks. Industrialization on a global scale has made this a regular part of our existence. The leaders of these industries, ExxonMobil, Chevron, and Aramco, must bear the weight of their effects on the world and reverse the effects of climate change. We will begin with the effects of climate change, the initiatives taking place, the regulation needed, and we'll also speak to an art movement dedicated to staying compassionate and optimistic about the future instead of the doom and gloom. First, we'll cover some of the direct consequences of climate change, such as storms and hurricanes. As evaporation intensifies, storms pull in more vapor and heat, leading to heavier rainfall and more flooding. Researchers suggest that U.S. hurricanes are 3 times more frequent than they were 100 years ago. They're also intensifying more quickly, yet moving more slowly, which causes further damage. Heat waves have also increased in frequency from an average of 2 per year in the 1960s to 6 per year in the 2010s and 2020s. Heat wave seasons are also about 46 days longer on average. Heat waves can lead to illness or death, especially in the vulnerable and unhoused and workers directly exposed to the heat. Heat waves dry up agriculture, kill livestock, increase risk of wildfires, and place heavy strain on the power grids, which can cause massive blackouts. Heat waves are also occurring earlier in the spring and later in the fall. Drought dries up soil and vegetation. Drought also leads to less winter snowfall, which affects many water management systems that rely on snowpack. Next, we'll examine some of the initiatives that governments worldwide and the United Nations have taken to combat the effects of climate change, like renewable energy, which is a source that cannot be depleted when used, like wind or solar. A quote from a UN report states that sustainable development cannot be achieved without significantly transforming the way urban spaces are built and managed. Net zero initiatives speak to the issue of emissions reduction. Net zero initiatives intend to eliminate these harmful emissions by producing fewer emissions than we remove, with a goal of reaching net zero by 2050. Corporations can lead the charge on net zero by redirecting more funds towards research and development. Get the best scientists on the job to find alternatives in energy usage, refrigeration, and forest restoration. According to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, approximately 70% of CO2 emissions come from only 100 companies. I'll let that one speak for itself. Now I want to cover what corporations must cease to do in order to meet the goals of these initiatives. First, I want to go over deforestation. According to Our World in Data, we deforest about 10 million hectares of forest annually. To put it into further perspective, 10 million hectares is equivalent to the area of Portugal. Half of this is offset by regrowing the forest, so in total we lose about 5 million hectares per year. Finally, I want to look at a few more things regarding the reversal of climate change, such as restoration of degraded lands. Tropical rainforests that once covered 12% of world's land masses now only cover 5%. There is a target goal to restore 865 acres of forest by 2030, which could remove up to 30 gigatons of CO2 from our atmosphere. It is important for everyone to be educated on the dangers posed by climate change, some solutions, who should be the ones coughing up the dough, and to hold those companies accountable. It will be important to build stronger relationships with the land in our areas, like getting to know the trees that line your commute and becoming familiar with the flora and fauna that surround you. A vision for a sustainable future is hard to fathom, but some have envisioned optimistic futures, less car-centric urban planning perspectives. Lastly, we'll look at some art inspired by the desire for a sustainable future and a potential future to look forward to. Solarpunk started as a literary genre and blossomed into a full-on artistic and social movement. Taking inspiration from indigenous agricultural practices, solarpunk art depicts an optimistic view of the future through the lens of sustainability and community building, with no place for monopolies, resource hoarding, and artificial scarcity. We've discussed the effects, the initiatives, the regulations needed, and the actions that can be taken to create a more sustainable world, including some beautiful art depicting an optimistic view of the future. Continue to do your part by planting a garden or converting to solar power if you can, but remember who's responsible, and know that they could have prevented the rise of climate catastrophes many years ago. If we can't count on those responsible to reverse these effects, then it is up to us to develop new survival strategies beyond our current means, sustainable survival on a communal level. Those who played the biggest part in polluting the planet, burning and cutting down our forests, and poisoning our drinking water, and profit the most from it, hold the biggest responsibility in undoing the damage caused by climate change. Thank you.